pre-orders explode. So why is Jungkook in the spotlight? Inside ARMY's quiet unease and the theory that won't go away what happens when a comeback breaks records before the first note is even heard. And yet, instead of pure celebration, a question begins to echo across timelines, group chats, and fan cafes around the world. Why? In the middle of BTS's most anticipated reunion era, does one name keep surfacing more than the others? And why are some ARMY whispering that this isn't accidental, but strategic? The numbers, at first glance, tell a story of triumph. BTS's fifth full-length album, Erarang, has shattered expectations with 4.06 million pre-orders in just 7 days, surpassing the legendary benchmark set by Map of the Soul, 7 back in 2020. Spotify pre-saves crossed 1 million in 2 days and doubled again before the week was out. Weverse membership surged, tripling almost overnight. From Jakarta to Los Angeles, from Seoul to Sao Paulo, the global machine that is BTS appeared to switch back on as if it had never rested. After nearly 4 years without a full group album, the kings of K-pop were back, and the world responded instantly. But beneath the roar of celebration, another narrative began to form. A quieter one at first. A raised eyebrow here, a lingering question there. Why do the thumbnails keep centering Jungkook? Why do algorithmic recommendations on Spotify and YouTube seem to funnel attention toward him more aggressively than toward the others? Why do international media headlines so often frame the comeback through his name, even when the album is explicitly positioned as a collective statement? Is this simply the natural gravity of BTS's most globally recognizable member? Or is there something more deliberate at play? As Erarang races toward its March 20th release date, this question has become impossible to ignore. And at the center of the discussion stands not only Jungkook, but HYB founder Bang Si-hyuk himself, a man long praised for his visionary instincts, now quietly scrutinized by a fandom known for noticing everything. The reference point for this debate is not rumor pulled from thin air. It begins with data. According to distributor YG+, the 4.06 million pre-order figure was recorded between January 16th and January 22nd, immediately eclipsing BTS's previous best. For many artists, this would be the end of the story. A record broken, a headline secured. But BTS is not just any artist, and ARMY is not just any fandom. Numbers are celebrated, yes, but they are also dissected. Fans quickly noticed that on Spotify, pre-save notifications, banner placements, and even automated playlists associated with Erarang frequently featured Jungkook's image or name more prominently. On Weverse, teaser copy and visual hierarchy appeared, to some, subtly weighted in his direction. On X, formerly Twitter, algorithm-driven trending topics often paired BTS comeback directly with Jungkook. Even when official posts named the group as a whole, did I ask that coincidence? Or optimization for a segment of ARMY? The answer seems obvious. Jungkook is, by many metrics, BTS's most universally palatable member in Western markets. His English pronunciation, pop-forward vocal tone, and proven solo success have already demonstrated his ability to cross borders with minimal friction. From this perspective, centering Jungkook in the early phases of the Erarang rollout is not favoritism, it's pragmatism. A familiar face to reopen global doors, to recapture casual listeners who may not have followed every member during the hiatus. This camp argues that Bang Si-hyuk has always played a long game, that he understands the mechanics of global pop better than most, that securing Western market dominance quickly, especially after a prolonged absence, requires a recognizable anchor. And if that anchor happens to be Jungkook, then so be it. The group benefits. The brand strengthens. The reunion succeeds. But another group of fans feels something else entirely. Unease. They point out that BTS's power has never been rooted in one member alone. The group's narrative, carefully cultivated over a decade, has emphasized balance, individuality within unity, and the idea that each member represents a different emotional and artistic axis. RM's leadership and intellect, Jimin's expressiveness and emotional resonance, Suga's raw honesty, J-Hope's performance energy, Jin's warmth and stability.
vs artistic mystique.
And Jungkook's all-rounder appeal, to tilt that balance, even subtly, is to risk altering the ecosystem that made BTS what it is. This is where the theory of a hidden agenda begins to take shape, not as an accusation of malice, but as a question of priorities. Has the global market become so central that internal equilibrium is now secondary? Is Arirang being framed not as 7 voices returning together, but as a flagship product led by the most export-ready figure? Bang Si-hyuk, notably, has not addressed these fan discussions directly. Public statements surrounding Arirang have focused on themes of identity, longing, and universal love, concepts meant to resonate across cultures. Yet silence, in a hyper-connected fandom, often speaks as loudly as words. The album itself is described as deeply introspective, reflecting the emotional landscape of absence and reunion. After 3 years and 9 months without a full group release, BTS is expected to grapple with questions of who they are now, both as individuals and as a collective. In that context, the optics of their rollout matter more than ever. ARMY in Indonesia, one of BTS's most passionate markets, has been particularly vocal. While many fans celebrated the record-breaking pre-orders with pride, discussions quickly evolved into debates about representation and fairness. Comment sections filled with rhetorical questions. Is this still BTS? Or is it BTS plus Jungkook? Are we witnessing a strategic necessity, or the beginning of a shift that could redefine the group's internal dynamics? It's important to note that none of this diminishes Jungkook's talent or hard-earned success. Even the most critical voices are careful to clarify that their concern is not about him, but about the system around him, about how power, visibility, and narrative are distributed when the stakes are global and the pressure immense. Historically, BTS has navigated these waters with remarkable sensitivity. Solo projects during the hiatus were handled with care, each member given space to explore their identity without overshadowing the group. That balance earned praise, even from skeptics, which is why the Arirang conversation feels different. It's not about music yet. It's about framing. And framing, in the age of algorithms, is everything to Spotify's pre-save mechanics, for instance, are not neutral. They are influenced by engagement patterns, previous listening behavior, and editorial decisions. A push toward Jungkook-heavy visuals may reflect data showing higher click-through rates when his image is used. From a business standpoint, this makes sense. From a fandom standpoint, it raises alarms. Because BTS is not just a product. It is a story ARMY feels deeply invested in. A story built on shared struggle, mutual respect, and the idea that no one member stands above the others when it truly counts. The expectation that Arirang could reach 7 million pre-orders before release only amplifies the tension. With 2 months still remaining, the album is poised to redefine what a global comeback looks like in 2026. Every move is magnified. Every choice scrutinized. The question remains, hanging unresolved in the air. Is Jungkook's spotlight a temporary bridge to re-engage the world, or a sign of a deeper recalibration within BTS's global strategy? As March 20th approaches, one thing is certain. Arirang is not just an album. It is a litmus test for HYBE's vision, for Bang Si-hyuk's leadership, and for BTS's ability to return not only bigger, but balanced. And perhaps the most unsettling question of all is this. If the reunion era begins with doubt alongside devotion, can the music itself be powerful enough to silence the noise? Or will it force an even more honest conversation about what BTS is becoming in a world that now expects nothing less than perfection? The world is watching. ARMY is listening. And the answer, as always with BTS, may arrive not in statements or strategies, but in the sound of 7 voices finding their way back to one song. And yet, as the silence stretches between teasers and official explanations, that one song everyone is waiting for has not been heard. In that vacuum, speculation grows louder, because when BTS goes quiet, the world doesn't stop talking, it leans in closer. Across fan spaces, a pattern is being dissected frame by frame. International media headlines, particularly in the US and Europe, increasingly frame Arirang through a familiar lens. Jungkook-led momentum, Jungkook-driven anticipation, Jungkook as the face of BTS's return. For casual readers, this framing feels natural. For longtime ARMY, it feels loaded. Not wrong, necessarily, but incomplete. Why incomplete? Because BTS's history has always resisted simplification. This is the group that rewrote K-pop's global narrative precisely because it could not be reduced to a single archetype. BTS survived industry skepticism, cultural barriers, and market fatigue by presenting 7 different emotional entry points into the same story. Remove or minimize any one of them, and the architecture shifts. That is why some fans are asking a harder question now. Is this emphasis on Jungkook a temporary marketing lens? Or is it quietly reshaping how BTS will be perceived post-reunion? Bang Si-hyuk's role in this debate looms large, not because of anything he has said recently, but because of what he represents. He is the architect who turned BTS into a global force by trusting storytelling over formulas. He is also the executive who understands, better than most, that Western markets reward familiarity, clarity, and identifiable leads, and therein lies the tension. From a purely strategic perspective, centering Jungkook makes sense. His solo work during the hiatus demonstrated undeniable global pull. Streaming numbers, chart longevity, and cross-market appeal placed him in a rare category, a K-pop artist whose name alone triggers algorithmic confidence in Western platforms. For Spotify editors, YouTube curators, and brand partners, Jungkook is a known quantity, but BTS has never been built on purely strategic decisions alone. ARMY remembers this. They remember how risky it once seemed to push RM as a spokesperson in English-language interviews, how unconventional it was to spotlight Jimin's emotional vulnerability, how Suga's raw honesty defied idol norms. Those choices weren't optimized for algorithms, they shaped culture. That is why the Arirang rollout feels like a crossroads that on one side is scale. The promise of immediate global dominance, of reclaiming charts with minimal friction, of reminding the world why BTS is still unmatched. On the other side is identity, the delicate balance of 7 narratives converging without one overpowering the rest. Some fans fear that once the market recalibrates around a single figure, it becomes difficult to reverse. Algorithms learn. Media habits solidify. Audiences follow the path of least resistance. And suddenly, what began as a practical move becomes the default. Others argue that this fear underestimates BTS themselves. That once the music drops, once performances begin, once interviews resume with all 7 members present, any perceived imbalance will dissolve. That Jungkook's current visibility is simply the opening note, not the full composition, but uncertainty lingers because the stakes feel different now. This is not a debut. It is not a comeback after a short break. This is BTS returning as men who have changed to an industry that has also changed. K-pop is more global, but also more crowded. Attention is more fragmented. Loyalty is tested faster. In this landscape, every decision carries long-term consequences. The album title, Arirang, adds another layer of irony to the debate. Arirang, a traditional Korean folk song, symbolizes collective emotion, shared sorrow, and enduring connection. It is not about a single voice, it is about harmony, about many voices carrying the same melody across time. What does it mean when an album named after unity is introduced to the world through a narrowing lens? That question has fueled some of the most emotional discussions within the fandom. Not angry ones, but anxious ones. Fans who waited patiently through enlistment periods, solo eras, and uncertainty now find themselves protective of the balance they believe defines BTS's soul. At the same time, there is pride. Immense pride. The pre-order numbers are undeniable proof that BTS's bond with their audience remains unbroken. The surge in Weverse membership shows that fans are not disengaging, they are leaning in. Spotify pre-saves climbing past 2 million in 4 days is not the sign of a fractured fandom. It is the sign of hunger, which is why this moment matters so much, because ARMY is not questioning success. They are questioning direction. Will Arirang reaffirm BTS as 7 equal pillars returning stronger together? Or will it mark the beginning of a more centralized global narrative, shaped by market logic rather than collective storytelling? The truth may lie somewhere in between. Bang Si-hyuk has always walked the line between art and commerce with unusual finesse. It is entirely possible that Jungkook's prominence is a calculated opening move, designed to secure attention quickly before expanding the frame. It is also possible that internal discussions within HYB are grappling with pressure